The Canon EOS M50 is a small mirrorless camera with a lot of value packed into its tiny frame, while the Sony A6400 does basically the same thing. And by basically the same thing, I mean it packs a lot of value into its tiny body. Not that they actually do the same thing. But the question will still remain, if you have to pick between the two, why should you pay twice as much for the A6400? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. Welcome back to Why Pay Twice as Much, the every so often video series where we take cameras that cost half or twice, depending on your point of view and how you look at it, as much as another. So we're gonna find out if the extra cost is actually worth it. We've done it with the A6000 to the M50, the M50 to the A6500, the A6400 to a bunch of other high-end cameras, and it's time for the current reigning champion. There really isn't a champion, as this isn't like a huge contest, but let's go with it. It's time for the reigning champion A6400 to get put into the line against a camera half-ish. I mean, if you get the nice kit lens with the A6400, it's half the price. The Canon M50. It should come as no surprise that I really like both of these cameras. They are both packed with value for days, and I've made whole videos on each on why you should buy each of them, as they both have their own little charm. That's enough nicey talk though, let's get to the comparison. The A6400 clocks in at a trim $899 without the kit lens, or $999 for the version with the 16-50, this little fella. Like, look at how small this lens is. I love this lens. The M50 on the other hand tips the scale at $579 without the kit lens price, or $599 with its little version of a zoom kit lens. Yeah, it's worth $20. Get the version with the kit lens. But what specs do you get for those price differences? Well, both have a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor. Now, there is a slight difference, as Canon's APS-C is a little bit smaller than Sony's, but I mean, it's not really that much to write home about, but it is enough to write into a YouTube video script. That's confusing. When it comes to recording capabilities, the Canon M50 can record up to 4K 24 frames per second. Big asterisks here though. Big old asterisks. And the A6400 can record in up to 4K 30 frames per second. I mean, yeah, I did say there's a big old asterisk. The big difference between the 4K recording though is in 4K 24 frames per second, the M50 loses its dual pixel autofocus and will gain a rather aggressive 1.6 times crop on top of its already cropped sensor. The A6400 on the other hand doesn't have an additional crop on 24 frames per second 4K, but will gain a 1.1-ish times crop on 4K 30. Another big recording difference is the A6400 can record forever. You give this power and media, it will just keep going. It does not have a built-in 30-minute cap like most other DSLR style cameras, mirrorless or otherwise, which the M50 definitely has a 30-minute limit. But beyond specs, how does the video quality on both cameras actually look? Well, you know what? The best way to do this is let's take these and trade them out for these two cameras right here. So really quickly, okay, now we are on the M50 and the A6400. APS-C goodness. Okay, let's put it down. So obviously, this is the A6400 with the 24mm Zeiss 1.8, and the B cam is the Canon M50 with the 32mm 1.4. But to answer the latest question, I think both have perfectly usable and really good image quality. If you want 1080p, I think the Canon works out fantastically well. I mean, as it is a 1080p, I mean, that's really gonna be the main resolution you'll be using it in if you spend a lot of your time, like I do, in front of the camera. The 4K battle though easily goes to the A6400 though, as it's actually taking a 6K image and downscaling it to 4K, making it basically one of the crispest looking 4K images you're gonna find for sub $1,000. But image quality is only half of the video battle. How does the internal audio sound? Well, both have pretty good internal preamps though. I will say I think the Sony has the far superior ones over the Canon. Like, you've heard me say this very often, but there are only a couple of companies that I trust to really handle internal camera audio, and that's Sony and Panasonic. I mean, those two have the best. The Canon M50 is perfectly usable, it's just not as good as the Sony. But let's hop outside really quick and put the two head to head in a quick vlogging test. See you out there. Welcome to the vlogging test of the Canon EOS M50 and the Sony A6400. So we're just kind of out here back in the woods, wandering around, recording, seeing which one you like better. So you can see the two cameras. You got the flip screen, you got the flip out screen versus the flip up screen. I really like both. When you get a little audio device like the Rode Wireless Go, like the audio that's currently being recorded, it doesn't really matter where the screen is. It's more of a personal preference at this point anyway, but this is the image quality between the two cameras, and I've got image stabilization turned on the Canon M50, just so you can see, is that electronic image stabilization worth it, because the A6400 has nothing. The two lenses do have stabilization built into them, but it only works so well, especially when it comes to video. That's kind of more of a photography thing. There's only so much that optical stabilization can do for video, unless it's like really good built-in IBIS, like we'll see later this week on maybe a camera that I like very much. But yeah, this is the image quality, something that I am gonna do a little bit differently this time than we normally do. I normally try to match up the resolutions, but today the A6400 is recording in 4K, the Canon M50 is recording in 1080p, both at 24 frames per second. But what I really want you to see is, can you even tell the difference? This video is going to be totally rendered at 4K, so the 1080p will be upscaled, the 4K will just be 4K, but can you even tell the difference? Like, do you need to buy a 4K camera, or does 1080p work just as good? That's gonna be a personal question. I prefer to shoot everything in 4K just because, I don't know, 4K has sold me that. I've bought into the 4K hype. But yeah, this is the vlogging test of the two cameras. Whew, look at that rolling shutter. Both the 1080p will have less rolling shutter than the 4K and the A6400, but yeah, vlogging test complete. My shoulders are hurting. Back to the video. So which of those look better, I think will come down to if you are okay with 1080p, which the Canon M50 crushes, or do you really want 4K? I mean, where the image quality goes to the Sony, the next one is much, much more skewed. And that's ease of use. I mean, ease of use is something that Canon basically almost always wins. There is no other camera company on the planet that can make a camera that is as easy to use as a Canon. Physically, it is kind of anemic. It only has one rotating dial on top with a mode dial next to it, and the back does have a few other buttons, but when it comes to actual physical buttons, it's not the strongest showing Canon's got. But where it comes out on top is that fully articulating touchscreen. And woo boy, that fully articulating touchscreen. Basically, every time I talk about a Canon camera, I mention this, but that's only because as someone that tweaks my videos a lot before and after hitting record, I mean, being able to see your settings and actually change them from in front of the camera is awesome. For example, the beginning of this video was shot on the Nikon Z6. I mean, this is my favorite full frame camera, but I need a monitor on it since it doesn't have a flip screen, and you can't set it to show the full display on this monitor. So if I have an issue with it, I have to get up, I have to walk around behind the camera, I have to guess the settings that I want, come back, sit down, think, does the picture look about right? No, it needs something else. So I gotta get up, walk around behind the camera, do it, and I gotta like walk the settings on myself to get the image I want, and that takes time and it's frustrating. Whereas on the Canon camera, I see the settings, I can reach up, boop, 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 boop. Done. That saves so much time, and yes, it is that useful of a feature. The A6400 does have a flip up screen, which also lets you see the settings from in front of the camera, but unfortunately, it's not as easy to change. I can't just tap the screen to change those settings. It's just the touch functionality only works for focusing. So ease of use absolutely goes to the M50. I mean, it's not even close. It's one of the easiest cameras ever made to use. But after you hit record is a different beast that I call fiddliness, because you probably shouldn't be changing too many of those settings when rolling. Like right now, I would hope the video looks fine. I don't want to change settings, like as we're in the process of this. And here it kind of evens out because there are a few extras that I consider for fiddliness, and that's autofocus, stabilization, and monitoring options. Both have really good autofocus. The M50 is in 1080p, that's where it has the good autofocus, but the A6400 has crazy good autofocus in every single recording settings. Both have that way to monitor yourself while in front of the camera, so that kind of like negates a lot of the advantages over the Canon. And while neither has IBIS, in-body image stabilization, the M50 does have electronic image stabilization. I mean, it doesn't do GoPro levels of stability, but I mean, it does enough. I still think the A6400 is least fiddly for two main reasons: the audio levels and the autofocus in whatever resolution. The A6400 will show you audio levels from the main screen, whereas on the M50, you have to be at a specific screen to monitor that, where you lose the actual ability to monitor yourself. I mean, this is a huge deal because, like we mentioned back in video quality, audio is so darn important. And if you are a solo content creator like me, you can't have headphones in to monitor audio, so you need the camera to show you that. So like the A6400 right now, I'm looking at my audio levels. I see I'm not reaching the point where the distortion would be too hot, so I can do all that from in front of the camera, which is incredible. But let's say you're swayed by the Everyday Dad's excellent video arguments. They're pretty good. And decide to get one of these cameras. What does the ecosystem / upgrade path look like? Well, this is, if you've seen my other comparison videos, this one's gonna be a little bit wonky because if you consider native lenses for their specific sensor size, neither really has a great set of options. The EFM lineup is one of the smallest native lens lineups you are going to find. It does have a few gems in there, but nothing really shockingly good or worth buying for that specific lens. You can adapt EF and EFS glass, but at that point it takes away from the very small form factor, which is one of the major benefits of the M50. The A6400 uses Sony's E-mount, and the APS-C line is also not really fleshed out all that well. It does have some excellent prime lens options from Sigma that give you 3 really awesome budget-friendly focal lengths, but it doesn't exactly have anything mind-glowingly good for Sony branded glass, which is unfortunate. I mean, you can use Sony's full frame lenses natively here with a 1.5 times crop, but I don't know. I just wish Sony and Canon would invest more in their crop sensor bodies lens development. I mean, if I buy a crop sensor body, I'm trying to get a small camera. I don't want a big camera, so why would I want to buy big lenses to go with my small camera? I will say that I think the A6400 does have the better upgrade path due to the shared E-mount. I mean, the M50, you cannot, it doesn't really have an upgrade path at all. You can't use EFM lenses with the new RF bodies. I mean, you can't, you are stuck here, whereas here you get a little more functionality. But at the end of the day, is the A6400 worth twice the price over the Canon EOS M50? Now, I really think so. Look, if you only have the money for the M50, absolutely get it. It's a very small, very feature-packed camera that can have some excellent results. But I do think you get at least twice the value out of the extra money for the A6400. No recording limit, flip up screen, way better 4K image quality, good preamps, amazing autofocus, and the lenses you could buy now, you can use later because Sony's full frame cameras will do crop mode too, so you could use these lenses later on your bodies. I think the A6400 is absolutely one of the best value cameras on the market today and is absolutely worth the extra cost. Thanks for watching.